Welcome to the infamous edition of the Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched first-person simulation done through creative storytelling of history's most infamous people. Now, let's meet our guest. Welcome to the podcast. Let's start at the absolute beginning, where the public narrative hasn't yet distorted who you were. When and where were you born, and what was your given name?
I was born on July 9th, 1947, right in San Francisco, California. The name my family gave me was Orenthal James Simpson. My aunt actually suggested Orenthal, supposedly after a French actor she liked, but it was a mouthful from day one.
What was your hometown and home life like as a child?
I grew up in Potrero Hill, which was a pretty rugged, low-income neighborhood in San Francisco. Home life was tough. My father left the family when I was only about 5 years old, so my mother raised me, my brother, and my two sisters all on her own. She worked hard, pulling night shifts as a hospital orderly and later in the psychiatric ward to keep food on the table. To make things harder, I contracted rickets when I was 2, which left me severely bow-legged and pigeon-toed. We couldn't afford surgery, so my mother made these iron braces at home that I had to wear for a few hours every single day until I was 5. The local kids used to call me pencil pins because of it.
Was there a story behind your name or a nickname that stuck with you?
Like I said, I always hated the name Orenthal, so people just called me by my initials, OJ. Eventually, those initials naturally turned into the Juice. It started out as a play on orange juice, but once I got onto the football field and started showing off my speed and electrifying energy, the name took on a life of its own. Later on in Buffalo, playing behind an offensive line we called the Electric Company, the nickname just fit perfectly because juice is all about power.
What were you like as a child, and how many years of schooling did you actually attend?
I was a bit of a handful, running around the streets and looking for trouble. By the time I was 13, I joined a local street gang called the Persian Warriors, and I got suspended from school more than a few times. But I managed to stay in school because of sports. I went to Everett Junior High and then graduated from Galileo High School in 1965. My grades weren't good enough to get me into a major 4-year university right away, so I went to City College of San Francisco for 2 years before transferring to the University of Southern California to finish out my college years.
Was there a specific moment when you realized you were fundamentally different from everyone else?
It really hit me during my third arrest when I was a teenager. I was at the San Francisco Youth Guidance Center and I happened to meet the great baseball legend, Willie Mays. He looked at me and encouraged me to stay out of trouble and do something with my life. Seeing a massive star like him take a second to talk to a kid like me made me realize I had a special athletic gift and that sports could be my ticket out of the streets.
What's a decision that changed everything for you, but felt small at the time?
It was deciding to really dedicate myself to the gridiron at City College of San Francisco after high school. I didn't have the grades or the recruiters looking at me, but pushing through that first year of junior college and scoring 26 touchdowns opened the doors to USC, the Heisman Trophy, and everything that followed.
Let's talk about your early run-ins with the law. Before the world knew your name for your most infamous actions, what was your very first arrest or interaction with law enforcement, and what were the consequences?
My first real trouble came around 1961 when I was about 14. I was on the refreshments committee for a local dance, and since I didn't have any money, I decided to steal the supplies from a store. The catch was, it was the exact same neighborhood shop where I used to go shopping with my mother, so the owners knew exactly who I was and where I lived. When I got home, the police were waiting for me. I ended up spending the weekend locked up in juvenile detention before my mother picked me up on Monday, and my father gave me a severe whipping with his belt.
At what moment did you realize your name would never be forgotten?
It was June 17th, 1994. The entire nation stopped what it was doing. I was in the back of that white Ford Bronco, driven by my buddy Al Cowlings, riding down the Southern California freeways. There were news helicopters capturing every single second live on television, people lining the overpasses, cheering for the Juice, and regular programming was interrupted everywhere. That was the moment the media frenzy reached a scale the world had never seen before.
Did fame make you more dangerous, or did it simply expose who you already were?
Fame gave me an incredible amount of adulation and doors that opened everywhere I walked. I was a beloved football star, an actor, a pitchman for Hertz, and I was used to being adored by the public. But behind the scenes, that level of notoriety and the pressure to maintain a pristine public image created a massive divide between my public persona and my private life.
Who do you believe betrayed you first? A person, society, or your own instincts?
Looking back at the low-speed chase and the trial, my own instincts and how I handled the immediate aftermath of the tragedy backfired. Writing that letter that my friend Robert Kardashian read to the press, which everyone thought was a suicide note, and hitting the freeway instead of turning myself in right away, created a narrative of guilt in the court of public opinion before the trial even started.
What was your most unique habit or a random fact about you that would surprise people?
People might be surprised by how intensely addicted I became to golf. I picked up the game late, around 1987 when I was 40, but I ended up playing 5 or 6 times a week. I even used to drop massive amounts of money betting on the course with my golfing buddies, and I was notoriously competitive. My friends used to joke that I'd do just about anything to bend the rules and find my ball outside the woods.
What did the public never understand about the pressure you were under at the time?
During the trial of the century, the public saw a media circus, but they didn't see the sheer exhaustion of sitting in that courtroom day after day while my entire life, my character, and my race were dissected by the entire world under a microscope.
Did you have any known rivalries that defined your career?
On the football field, it was always about beating the toughest defensive lines in the NFL. But in the second half of my life, my defining adversaries became the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office and prosecutors like Marcia Clark and Christopher Darden, who fought tooth and nail to convict me in front of the world.
What personal battles were you fighting privately while the world was watching?
Privately, my body was deeply battered from years of playing football. During the trial, my defense team even pointed out that I was so severely stooped with arthritis that I had a legitimate medical excuse just to ride a golf cart at Pebble Beach.
What was your darkest moment? And was there ever a time you wanted to walk away from it all?
The darkest moment was definitely June 17th, 1994, inside that Bronco. I was completely distraught, holding a handgun to my own head in the back seat, while Al Cowlings was pleading with the police on his cell phone, trying to drive me back to my home in Brentwood so I wouldn't end it right there.
What truth was hardest to escape when you were alone at night?
No matter how many times I firmly stated to interviewers over the years that I didn't commit those crimes and that I loved Nicole, the hardest truth to escape was that the public had largely made up its mind, and I would never truly be able to outrun the shadow of that backyard in Brentwood.
When the law finally closed in, how exactly were you brought to justice? Walk me through the final arrest, the charges that ultimately stuck, and the legal outcome of your trials.
Well, in the 1995 criminal trial for the murders, the jury found me not guilty on all counts. But the law caught up with me in a different way later on. In September 2007, I went with a group of men to a Las Vegas hotel room at the Palace Station to confront some memorabilia dealers and take back sports items that I claimed belonged to me. Guns were brought into that room. I was arrested, and in October 2008, a jury found me guilty on 12 counts, including armed robbery and kidnapping. The judge sentenced me to a maximum of 33 years in prison. I served 9 years at the Lovelock Correctional Center in Nevada before I was finally paroled.
What is the biggest misconception people have about your life?
People tend to look at my life as a single tragic line, but they forget that for decades I was one of the most universally loved cultural figures in America, from breaking rushing records at USC in Buffalo to acting in Hollywood comedies.
What would surprise people most about your ordinary human side?
Towards the end of my life, I lived a pretty mundane, quiet existence in Las Vegas. I spent my days hanging out on the golf course, watching sports on the couch, drinking a beer, and just being a grandfather. Spending time and playing with my grandkids was truly what made me the happiest at the very end.
When, where, and how did you pass away?
I passed away on April 10th, 2024 in Las Vegas, Nevada. I had been battling prostate cancer, and toward the very end, I caught pneumonia and my health declined quickly. I chose to enter a hospice plan so I could take my chances at home, and I died peacefully in my bed, surrounded by my children and grandchildren at the age of 76.
Was your downfall caused more by your own flaws or by the world changing around you?
It was a mix of both. My own volatility and the choices I made behind closed doors set the stage. But the explosion of 24-hour cable news and tabloid media transformed my private struggles into a national obsession that permanently altered the landscape of celebrity and justice.
What past regrets did you carry with you to the end? If you could erase one decision from your life, would you? Or was it necessary to become who you were?
I didn't leave any final confessions or grand deathbed statements about my past legal battles. I kept things close to the chest, but my attorney mentioned that my only real regret at the very end was simply that I wanted a couple more years of life so I could see my oldest grandchild grow up and go to school.
What scared you more? Getting caught, losing power, or being forgotten?
Losing control of my own narrative was always the scariest thing to me. I spent my entire life building up a charming, untouchable persona, and watching that completely shatter in front of millions of people was a terrifying shift.
When you look back now, do you see yourself as the villain, the hero, or something in between?
Throughout my life, I always maintained my innocence and tried to frame myself as a man who faced unprecedented tragedy and legal bias. But history is going to judge me how a template sees fit. A sports hero to some, a villain to many, and a deeply complicated figure to the rest.
Do you have any closing remarks about the interview or the stories you shared that you would like to share with the listeners before signing off?
I just want to thank you for letting me share my side of the journey, from the early days in San Francisco to the very end. Life comes at you fast, and a reputation takes a lifetime to build, but only a moment to change. I appreciate the chance to look back on it all.
And that wraps up another conversation from Beyond the Grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, do better with the life you have been given and choose to do good in this life. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod